To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I didn't have the mic on. Sorry, Carlos, I didn't have my mic on for that. Okay. Thank you. Call to order, pledge allegiance. Presentations and recognition. CTSO celebrations. This is awesome. We'd like to see what you do and everything. Rhonda Doolin, you're in charge, is that correct?
Of this particular
Doctor.
item? Yes, but
good.
I'm absolutely not in charge.
Okay.
So I am really quick. I'm really excited that we have the opportunity to recognize our amazing students. But I'm actually going to turn it over to my directors who are here today that have any presence in skills. Look at John Howell's back there like, don't look at me, don't look at me. You will all know he did HOSA for many years, but now he's a director of programs that participate in skills. So this tonight is our skills and our FCCLA. So those of you directors who have students who participate in those, please go up to the mic and tell them a little bit about it.
President, members of the board, thank you for being here tonight. I have a few students, instructors, and parents of students who participated in the Skills USA State Leadership Conference in March. First, I'd like to have Mr. McNamara stand up. And Mr. McNamara, do you have students here today? If they'll also please stand up. And so, Edgar, correct? No, I'm sorry. Edgar's at work, this is Pat. Go ahead and state your name and what school you go to and what event that you competed in.
Ask him to come over to the microphone, else
Okay.
no one will see.
Got it.
But go on over there, Tanner. Yes, please do. The rest of you instructors that have students present, be ready to go next.
My name is Tanner Rogers. I am from Marcos Deniza High School, and I competed in the fire science competition.
All right. Can you tell us what your competition was about, besides fire?
Yeah, so it tested some of our skills in being able to interview in front of a board of judges, and then we also went over knots and a physical fitness course. So being able to get through a PT course and don our gear in a certain amount of time.
Would you tell everybody how much your gear weighs?
Probably 35, 40 pounds.
About half your weight. Very good.
Yeah, all right, perfect, thank you.
Well, Tanner was the silver medalist at state this year. The gold medalist unfortunately can't attend Atlanta this year. He had an accident. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. All right, so Tanner will be representing Arizona at the national championship in June, and we won it last year. So Tanner's going to make it back to back for us. We have a good feeling about this.
Nice. Way to go.
Excellent. No pressure, Tanner, no pressure. Okay, Tanner, we will let you sit back down, and I will have John turn it over to the next one.
So I'm going to actually announce all the skills, people, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Mr. Goodsell, will you please come up to the podium and please recognize Mr. Goodsell's family. Family, please wave to the board. So Christopher Goodsell is a student in Mr. Perez and Mr. Glon's graphic design program. And I'll let him introduce his name, what homeschool he goes to, and which event he competed in.
Good evening. I am Christopher Goodsell. I actually attend Arizona State University currently. I am in the post-secondary section, and I was part of advertising design at both the state and regional levels.
Excellent.
In our section, we actually had two different things to go. We had a mechanical and a creative section. In the mechanical, we were tasked to completely replicate a Skills USA banner down to typeface, color, and font. And we were given X amount of time to do that. The next section, which was the creative skills section, we actually had to completely design a logo from scratch for a company. At the state level, it was a coffee company in Apache Junction. So we went through the ideation process, starting at that and going all the way to creating the logo, a business card, as well as what would be the outside of the coffee cup. And then we had to submit that as well as our thumbnails that we created at the time. And we were given a, I believe, 4-hour or so time limit that we had to complete it in. And then that was judged on by professionals at Scottsdale Community College.
Excellent.
Which one of those did you find more challenging or more enjoyable?
Well, as a designer, it's always good to stretch the creative juices, but I found doing the mechanical part a better test of my skills and how good I can look at something and tell what I need to do and how to get it done.
Fascinating, thank you.
No problem.
Excellent. Thank you. Good job.
And I believe last but not least for skills is Miss Lou's students. So I'm going to invite you and your students up, and I'll let you introduce your students.
Hi, I'm Miss Liu. I teach second year Cosmo at Power Campus, and I was fortunate enough to have 3 gold medalists this year. Rachel and Liberty, raise your hands. They competed in the Community Actions Project, so they put together a fun project for the Power Campus, and I believe Maine followed suit with that. And then Miss Aubrey competed in the actual skills for the cosmetology, so I'll let them tell you guys what they did.
We competed in the Community Action Project, and you had to complete a binder and a presentation that had to be a minimum of 5 minutes and a maximum of 10 minutes. You had to explain your methodology, organization, implementation, and recognition. Yeah. Where do you guys go to school?
Oh, tell us more.
I go to school at Benjamin Franklin High School, and Liberty goes to Castile.
Which one's shy?
Let's not torture them.
Hello, my name is Aubrey Cook, and like Miss Lou said, I competed in the cosmetology portion of the Skills USA competition, and we had 45 minutes to complete an updo, a haircut, a men's haircut, and a long layered haircut, and it was sponsored by Great Clips, and there was also an interview portion of the competition. So we had, and we had to do 2 written tests, one that was in relation to the actual criteria of skills and the guidelines that they want and what each color of the emblem meant. And then we did a test about just knowledge behind cosmetology, like basic questions. So, yeah.
Excellent.
School.
That's incredible.
Good job.
I went to the hair show at Power Campus, and that was outstanding, but that doesn't seem possible. You could do all that in 45 minutes.
Yeah, it was pretty great. Yeah, thank you.
I think the only one I could do in 45 minutes is a buzz.
Right?
Mr. President, board members, I want you to know that there were actually a total of 20 EVIT students that earned gold at this year's Skills USA State Leadership Conference. And some of them were not able to make it tonight, but I want to let you know how proud we are of our students. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Paula Corbin, who's going to introduce the FCCLA winners.
CCLA. Okay.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. President and the board. We had 15 students that won gold for FCCLA, and we were super proud of all of them. So our programs that participated in FCCLA were interior design, fashion design, culinary baking, and also early childhood. Of those 15 that earned gold, we had 5 students that won nationals. So they were able to go to participate in nationals in Seattle this summer. We had really short notice. They all did want to make it. A lot of them had work or prior commitments, but we were able to have one student come, and I have Suzanne Tate. She is the interior design teacher, and she's going to introduce her student.
Hello, good evening. I'm Suzanne Tate, the interior design instructor, and my wonderful student, Leslie Mendoza. She did career exploration at FCCLA in Tucson and received a gold medal and was nominated to go to nationals. So only the top 2 in the state in a category get recommended to go to nationals. So Leslie was one of the students. I had one other student, Ashlyn Fromming, who wasn't able to make it, and then I had 3 others receive gold, 4 silvers and 1 bronze. So it was a very successful trip for us. But here's Leslie. She'll tell you about career exploration.
Hi, my name is Leslie Mendoza, and I attend EVIT, and the field that I did was career investigation. I decided to do career investigation on residential architect, since that's what I plan to go into my future. I was supposed to research the basic job description and what I plan to do with that job research in my future, and how it's going to apply to like colleges or like work ethics.
Interesting.
Excellent.
Wow.
And what's your homeschool?
EVIT. Or
Cool.
homeschool, besides EVIT, it's also Hamilton High School.
Great, thank you.
EVIT's your homeschool?
Yeah.
I love you called
I love
EVIT
it.
homeschool. That's
Yeah.
great. That's great.
Yeah. Well, that's why I won the competition, because I'm in EVIT, you know, so. Yeah.
Fantastic.
That's congratulations.
Before we let them go, I just want to take a minute and make sure we acknowledge the parents and family members and friends that came to support these students, because we all know without them, none of this is possible. We need all the support we can get, so we thank you for being here.
Definitely.
Parents and students, I really appreciate what you've all done. Being an ex-teacher and CSL teacher, I know you've done a lot of work. You've made our board presentation here the best part of the presentation. You do not have to stay with the rest. You may exit this time if you wish, and thank you for coming, parents and students and teachers. But you're welcome to stay.
We've got homework.
Oh,
Rush off and get it done.
okay, student first.
Going to get ice cream, right? Celebratory ice cream.
Okay, presentation recognition minutes. There we go. Okay. Item 4, minutes of the regular, no, yeah, we've done 3. Regular meeting of April 8th, 2024. Any motion?
I move that we approve the regular meeting minutes from April 8th, 2024.
Button down at the bottom.
It's on.
Okay,
I second the motion.
okay. We have a first and second. Any discussion, comments?
No, I'll just be an abstention on this one since I wasn't there if we're doing an acclamation.
Yeah, I'll not be voting either. I was not present.
And I'm the third on that.
Okay, so it's just Mr. Hobson, myself, and Mr. Ellison. Okay.
He votes yes. Hobson?
Well, all in favor?
Aye. None.
Any
Can't say it.
opposed? And many abstain.
Okay. 3. I'm assuming it passed.
How does that work, Dr. Wilson, when only 3 of us
So that's
actually
the
vote?
question, Counselor. Is the quorum an issue?
No, it's majority of the voting, people who've actually voted.
Okay, 3-0. Okay, call the public. Do we have any call the public, public? Dr. Wilson?
No, we don't.
No call the public? Okay. We have consent agendas A through F. Have a motion?
I'll move we approve the consent agenda A through F.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a first and second. Any discussion on any of the items, A through F? Hearing none, we'll vote by acclamation.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Item 7, personnel. Dr. Wilson, do you want to say a little bit?
On the personnel, no, sir, this is just the standard process we go through this time of the year as we bring on additional individuals, and we also have additional roles and responsibilities that need to get captured at this time of the year for some of our internships and externships.
Okay, just want to double check, thank you. Do I have a motion?
Mr. President, I move that we combine 7A and B into one. And
One motion?
One motion.
That'd be fine. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by acclamation, or excuse me, call for the question by acclamation.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Information discussion. Item 8, board member conference discussion, and 7B. We did 7A and B together.
Yeah, but there's a C.
Oh, there's C? No.
No, I think that's.
Oh, never mind. I skipped it.
Certificate.
Sorry.
You got the
I was
old-
excited for grade C.
Oh,
All around.
hey, I'm glad to see I'm not the only one that has done that. Thank you. You make me feel human again. All right. Let's see. Board member conference discussion to Region 5, I guess. Dr. Wilson?
Mr. President, members of the governing board, one of the commitments the governing board made when you worked through board travel was to have governing board members that went to a conference report back out. And I believe that Mr. Covington and Mr. Lane were at the Region 5. And so I didn't know if either of you wanted to take a minute and kind of walk through the highs and the lows, the goods and the bads.
I can speak to
Please
that
do.
if you would like. So this year, it was held in Hawaii, and that was kind of a political thing. But you have to realize Region 5 stretches from the Midwest clear to Guam. And so those people have always had to come, and so that's why it was held there. My personal experience began when I got on the plane going over there at 7 in the morning on a Sunday. I noticed when we were in the boarding area, there's a group of young people, and one of them sat next to me, young man, and I says, "Is this a school field trip?" And, "Yeah." "Where'd you go to school?" It's a charter up in Scottsdale. "Oh, that's great. What do you want to be when you grow up?" He says, I want to be an auto mechanic." "Well, what are you doing about that? Have you ever heard of EVIT?"
Good for you.
So we had a discussion. No, I didn't talk to him for 7 hours. I held off about 20 minutes, and I think that was, he learned all he cared to learn from me. But on arrival, one of the days, it was kind of, they had divided everybody up into about 10 or 12 groups to different things. And the one I chose was an experimental farm, agriculture thing, and they were, their mission was to go after invasive species of plants and animals. And through all that, it was a little difficult to kind of tie it to CTE, but it was terribly interesting to me. And then the next day, we had the classroom part of it. They had sessions almost every hour throughout the day, typical conference style, 45 minutes, and 10 minutes you go to the next one, And I attended one that kind of as a personal issue myself, not necessarily an issue, but an interest, with special ed kids participating in CTE programs and what you do it. And there was a range of people. The gal that was presenting, I think was from, I want to say Chicago, but it's not. It's somewhere up in that neighborhood. And the range of programs, there were some states where they just didn't allow SPED kids to participate. And that kind of bothered me a little bit. In my own program, I have about 17, 18% students that are SPED. All said and done, they do better than most of the kids, and I've been able to place quite a few of them in really good jobs. So that was the big thing I did. Mr. Covington, would you like to share anything you did?
I just know that I went to a program on that day when we went out with everybody. It was on internships, and it was done by a, gosh, what could I say with this? There's independent, there's labor workers. But it wasn't very well organized, and I was kind of disappointed in what they did. But it was nice to get out and see their facility, and we toured it on our own, and I was with some other people that were in that area. They talked about the equipment in there and stuff, that it's good, but we weren't able to see the students because they only go 1 day a week at the place, and they go out to work 4 days a week. So it's kind of different on the internship. And the day before we had, they broke us out to teach us a little bit about Hawaii, and I went to a museum. And before you went to the museum, they have to ask the people that are in the museum, their spirits, permission to go in and see it. And they get up there, the person that was in charge of our tour sang a song, and then the people that were given the tour sang a song, and then they had 5 students there that were from the island, and they all sang. It was really beautiful. They're singing, you know, I couldn't understand a word, obviously, because, you know, it's in their language, but it was really pretty and stuff, and made you feel welcome to go in and see what was going on in the museum. A little bit different there. And then the last night, we were there, we had dinner together on a ship. They took us out and took us back and had a, you know, all the Hawaiian atmosphere there for us and stuff. It was nice. We enjoyed it.
Good. I know, I mean, the governing board has wrestled and will continue to wrestle with board travel, and I think that is a fair thing to do for the reasons that we've talked about a number of times. But I do think that it's always nice for you all to get out and see the good that's happening out there, because there is a lot of good that's happening out there. But I think sometimes it's also nice for you to realize the good that we're doing here, because when you're just focused on us, you begin to think that that's what everybody is, and it's not.
No.
And so I think it works both ways. And Mr. Lane, I think one of the things I found most interesting about students with disabilities when I came to EVIT was if you find the right program and the right setting, they flourish. They flourish. And so I think in there is a testament not only to CTE and to the work that we do, but also in some ways a lesson learned for traditional systems, in my opinion. So I think that the breakout session you went to, I think, is actually a really interesting one.
It was. And also came to my attention, I didn't get to attend, one of our faculty members was a presenter in that.
Right.
Yes.
Dr. Laura McKay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know the names, but I'm terrible with names for a bit.
Dr. Lambus.
So one of the things, we took direction from you as a board when we became part of the organization that EVIT needs to have a bigger presence because of the good work that we're doing. And so I think year over year, you're seeing more and more of our faculty and staff participating on the local level, but also the national level, talking about the good work that we're doing. So it's always encouraging when we have one of our own presenting on that stage. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, I didn't know ahead of time that was happening, or I probably would have went just to support. But, you know, if we're going to have a world-class organization, which we're striving for and we're getting there, we need to act that way and put ourselves out there.
Yeah, I'm glad. Good. I'm glad. Thank you.
Very good point. Thank you. Okay. We'll go item B. Dr. Wilson.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, on the heels of making sure that we continue to put our best foot forward, one of the things that we have done year over year since we all started working together is make sure that we have a greater presence in our state conference. There's a period of time, if you went to the state conference, you may find 1, 2, maybe folks from EVIT, and now each year we bring more and more individuals, and that's a good thing. I think this year we have scheduled faculty and staff, 50, how many, 30? 30. We currently have 30 staff that are scheduled to go. There's an item later on in the agenda for the governing board to be able to participate in that. The reason why I had this as a discussion item is we're having a darn time getting hotel rooms. And so we currently have hotel rooms for our teachers. And Tammy and Lindsay continue to work on trying to track some rooms down, but I share that with you because obviously the overall discussion you've had as a governing board would lend itself towards having some of you participating for valid reasons. I would just ask that you give us a bit of grace that if we are going to send governing board members, which, like I said before, I don't have a problem with that, that we utilize the rooms that we have first for our staff, and as other rooms become available, if they become available, is when we slide in governing board members, or administration for that matter, to be honest with you.
I'd be perfectly comfortable in one of the overflows. But it should be the teachers get the site-based rooms
Thank you.
first. And a lot of those rooms, a lot of people go in on the day of the
Yes.
place and get these huge blocks that they're never going to fill.
Right.
And you'll find that if you look at what the last day is to cancel your registration for conference, that's the day you call.
And that was a situation we had last year. We wound up
Yeah.
having rooms open up, and we're going to continue to work on that. But I just want to make sure that you guys are comfortable with the idea that, as it stands today, the rooms that we have are slotted for our teachers. Part of the reason why we have such a large number is that they're new teachers, and that's part of, I believe, their professional development or their.
Yeah,
Our new teachers that are within their first 3 years of certification need to get so many CEUs to recertify. And because we have been growing, we have a lot of new teachers, and they need to be able to go. This is a great conference for them to go to that's local, that they can go and get those CEUs they need to keep their certification and continue to do the good work they do here. But that is why we have a large amount slated to go right now.
Are any of them doing presentations, or the experienced teachers like Mr. Howell or whatever?
We actually have some presentations by EVIT that are going to be down there at the conference. So we do have some that are going for that purpose. But for the most part, it's their new teachers, and the directors have done a really good job of identifying which teachers need to go and need that opportunity to make sure their certifications stay up where they need to be. And we're looking at how we can get the most out of going down to the conference. I also have several new directors that need to go for some training that is only being offered down there in Tucson.
That's good, we're getting those teachers down there. It's a good way to get them experienced. I'm glad you're inviting teachers to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I guess C, hiring, salary guidelines, reclassifications, and title changes. C, Dr. Wilson.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, I gave you a word salad last meeting, and I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. There's an action item, several action items later on in the agenda. So I thought it might make sense to once again kind of revisit some of the conversations that we had at our last meeting. One of the requests that was given several weeks ago was to have an organizational chart that you all begin to see what we're growing into in terms of roles and responsibilities. And we provided that last meeting, but we'd like to provide it again just so that there's a context of how we see ourselves growing. We also provided last meeting and this meeting as well, salary guidelines. And what the salary guidelines are is kind of the amount that we want to add to the base of our beginning salary cells. One of the things that we've talked about previously is that you guys have done an amazing job giving increases, but historically the organization didn't move the beginning salaries up. And that just kept creating that separation. And so a number of years ago, we started going down the road of whatever percentage was given to a certain class of increase, we took half that and put it onto the base salary, the beginning salary, so the beginning salary kept increasing as well. So you'll see the 24-25 salary guidelines recommendation, the 10-month is a 3% increase. That's half of the 6% that was provided to our 10-month instructors. And then you'll see the hourly support, exempt support, and other certified is at 2%. That 2% represents half of the 4% that was provided to the support staff several meetings ago. Again, this is just for our beginning base level salary increases so we can stay competitive in the market. I'm going to skip over the 24-25 position classification for a second, and then I'll come back to that because Ms. Perez is going to help me with that one. The 24-25. The what?
One's in the purple and one's in the orange.
You guys all on this one here?
Yeah.
No, this one here.
So the bottom section on that page, the 24-25 title changes, that doesn't carry with it any change in compensation. is just simply a title change. And the reason why we're changing the titles is so we can have some more uniformity within the organization. And as we continue to grow, that's going to matter, grow on the high school side, the adult ed certification side, but also the associate side. So the bottom section there is just title changes with no monetary change. The middle section, we spent a bit of time on, and I'd like to make sure that we're on the same page, again, before we get to the action item. One of the things that I'm grateful for as a superintendent is that you all have been very proactive in increasing the salary and compensation of our teachers. And we know that we have to do that to stay competitive in the marketplace. We're not just competing against public schools, we're competing against the private sector. And so you have been very proactive in helping us maintain competitiveness. In doing that, though, we've also narrowed the gap between what the hourly rate is and what the contract would be for an individual, an instructor, versus one of our deans, our directors, as an example. And we have made the conscious decision in most cases to try to grow our own, not completely, but to try to grow our own. And we think there's value added in that because EVIT is unique. And so having individuals grow through the system and move into those leadership positions while adding a sprinkling of outside influences seems to be a good recipe. Dr. Doolin has talked repeatedly about the directors we have this year and their ability to do well. And I think we are seeing the fruits of that labor. The hard part about it is that for many of the individuals that were instructors for us, had they stayed as an instructor, they would be making more on a 12-month contract as an instructor. Now, that's not 12 months, it's a 10-month, but you got to prorate it out. On a 12-month contract than what they're making as a director in the leadership position. And when we talk about how we can grow into becoming who we expect ourselves to be, it's having quality employees across the system. And one of the areas I get nervous about is if we're not able to pay what we need to pay for our teachers, for our front staff, for our office staff, for our grounds, but also for our directors and our leadership, we're going to run the risk of not having the organizational structure that we need. So I asked Ms. Perez if she could do an analysis of the position and give us a sense of if we're in the right space and it just is what it is, or are we not in the right space, and to dive a little bit deeper. So I'm going to turn that over to Ms. Perez and her deeper dive.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. So as Dr. Wilson is talking regarding the instructors, that we're basically growing our own. When you look at, as an example, last year our average salary, approximately $65,000 for a 10-month employee, for a 10-month instructor, which is the equivalent, they are on a 185-day schedule. So their daily rate for, again, on average, $65,000. It's about, well, let me backtrack a little bit. So $65,000, then the board approved a 14% salary increase for the current year. So that brought that salary to $74,100. Then on top of that, for the upcoming year, you approved an additional 6%. So that instructor last year making on average $65,000 is now making, in the upcoming year, will be making $78,546, which is the equivalent of $424.57 per day. So when you translate that into a 12-month employee with the 261 days that are on the work schedule, that translates to $110,813. So what we're requesting here on the base salary for the directors is $111,616. So as you can see, it's not very much of a difference when we're looking at that. This also does not take into account that our instructional staff is eligible for the performance-based compensation under 301, for which directors are not, and that averages anywhere between $10,000 and $12,000 in addition to. So it was important for us that you understood that piece. Now, when we look at the average teacher compensation for the upcoming year, that's already a little bit under $70,000. So as you continue to approve the salary increases, which we are very appreciative of, so that we can find the qualified staff into our teaching positions, that also has that impact that Dr. Wilson was mentioning.
So it's kind of that ripple up effect that if we have individuals that we're growing in our organization to step into different roles and responsibilities, but our compensation isn't keeping pace with the compensation we're providing for instructors, we run the risk of not being able to elevate individuals into new positions that we're going to desperately need as we continue to grow. I believe Ms. Perez, when she did the analysis, the 3 individuals that grew through the organization, with a new base being 111, then you added their experience, it would put them roughly at, on average, I want to say 115, 116. You compare that to the average teacher that is on, that has the 70,000 plus the potential for the 10,000 and 301, and you monetize that over an additional 2 months, we're still close in that range, right? It's not an exuberant amount, but it's a step in the right direction that we don't have our directors making less than what we would have them be making if they were instructors in the classroom. And we're asking them to not only evaluate the instructors, but help provide professional development, to help provide programming, to help work with student discipline, to help work in some cases with our adult education certification program, in some cases with the associates. I mean, the list that we have them doing is a significant list. The 111 is also the base salary for high school principals in Chandler. And so this isn't something that's out of the norm within the Valley, but it is something I think that is important to us if we're going to be able to attract and retain a leadership that is necessary for us to continue to grow. So salary guidelines affects the base of our contracts so that we can stay competitive in the base pay. The position reclassification is a market analysis that allows us to be competitive in those positions. And then the title changes is simply just that. It's changes in the title of the position without any sort of monetary compensation.
Can I just clarify?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We've increased teacher salary 20% over the last 2 years. Is that what you said? Correct. Just wanted to be sure my math and memory served me correct. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Hobson.
apropos of Ms.
Excuse
Mackey's.
me, go ahead, Mr. Hobson.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Apropos of Ms. Mackey's inquiry, it's important, I think, that we reflect that it's 20% over the last couple of years, yes, but what was happening prior to that was horrible. And if you take the salary increase over the last 5 years, we are just getting caught up now for what was it was being, that our salary system was not systematized, and there were people being paid all over the map and underpaid significantly. So just, take the longer view. Remember that this is an increase over the last couple of years to make up for what was not being done the previous 3, 4, or 5 years and longer.
Thank you, Mr. Hobson. Any other discussion? This is discussion time. Okay.
That's it?
That's it, okay. And we want to go on to number 9, call for executive session, A, B, and C.
Do we combine those? or
Yes.
do they-
Yeah, you can,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. So I move that we go into executive session for items 9A, B, and C.
I second.
Okay, I'll call for the question.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries to executive
So
session.
we'll head over into the fishbowl.
We're on action items 10, approval of board member travel 2024 Arizona ACT Summer Conference. I need a motion. These are action items.
I move that we approve board member travel 2024 Arizona ACTE Summer Conference.
Have a second?
Excuse me, Madam President, members of the governing board, I believe, and I'm sorry, I should have been paying more attention, I apologize. I believe that the action item has identified names, or at least a number.
Yeah, it does.
10A.
Okay. Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah, but I don't see that paper in here. We don't have that page in here.
It's on the agenda, action
It's
item
on the
10A.
agenda action item area right there.
Yeah.
Approval of overnight travel board members, how many names?
Oh, it's on the summary, okay.
But on the computer, there's nothing.
Okay,
Is it
wait.
different? Yeah.
That's what,
Oh, I
that's what we need
apologize.
to
It's
fill
not
in,
on
how
the-
many,
I
how many
apologize.
people, I guess in the motion has to be how many board members may attend.
It's not
Let's
on
ask.
there.
How many want it?
Well, we have to.
We got
do the
5 people
motion
here.
So we can,
Yeah.
to discuss.
Okay, that would be within the motion then, I guess.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, your motion. 2, 3.
Here it is. Yeah, it's in the notice, but it's not in the backup material.
Oh, I apologize. It should have been in the backup, I apologize. So as a reminder, I think part of the discussion that you as a governing board had and part of our policy reads that you have to identify the individuals that are attending. And so,
Tammy, how many have said they'd like to go? 0?
No one yet has told me they would like to go.
Well, I think after discussion, this is the one that we really need the teachers to go to. And we
Yes.
don't,
Well,
we don't have the
we've
hotel
already
room, so.
approved 30 teachers.
correct.
Yeah.
So this is the discussion, and in the rooms that we have are being held for the teachers. I think that there's value in board members going if we can find rooms. And so I don't know if there is a board member or two that would like to go,
I would
or
like
if
to go, but I'd be comfortable staying in the overflows.
How many people we want to go?
That's, the statute is the conference art, and they have designated overflows.
they do.
Table it, so.
I'm comfortable with that.
Dr. Wilson, can I change my motion to table this until
Yes.
we have the exact number? And we can make it smooth and easy? Or is our time sensitive? Do you want it right now?
Well, if the 6 of us, does only one, Mr. Lane?
No, it's, we can table it. There's no travel, there's no airfare, it's just a drive down to Tucson, and we can secure the rooms and be in a position to release them before the next governing board meeting. What I would ask is at the next governing board meeting that we'll have a discussion item on the front end, followed in the back end on the action item that you guys have worked your way through to get to the point of recommendation, the names of the individuals who would like to attend.
I only want to table it if it's not going to cause more problems.
No,
If it's something-
it'll be okay.
Okay. And on this topic, I generally, just in my real life, July is a really hard, busy month. I generally will not be able to go to something like this, but I would be able to go for a single day.
Yes.
And I do not want to have, pay for the entire conference if there is a day fee or a day pass or something.
No.
I don't know if that's
Just,
something that other people, I realize Tucson is not
You just
just a
show
hop,
up and
skip,
we're
and a
gonna
jump.
roll you in there.
However, I like
Yeah.
that. I can do
Okay.
that. Okay. Thank you.
Well, there's one for you, Tammy.
You have a,
We need a change, it's tabled, it's
I'll
tabled.
second the table motion, or the amended motion.
Okay. Any more discussion on this? If not, let's ask for the question, please.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, now we're on to B, associate degree tuition, registration nursing. Motion?
Also move.
I'll second.
Any questions, statements?
Yeah, I guess my question is generally the same question I have when we're approving tuitions. To what extent are we competitive with the market with this tuition proposal?
Okay. Yes, good evening again. We did a comparison with the community college, the Maricopa County Community Colleges, and their tuition varies based on in-county resident and/or out-of-state tuition. So that ranges between $7,000 and $28,960 for the degree. Then you look at Carrington College, it's $49,125. Pima Medical Institute, $52,793. And Jersey College, $52,358. So those were the comparisons that we did for our program.
Any other? Okay.
So, Mr. President.
Yes, sir. Mr. Hobson.
Yeah, and I'm not sure who can answer this, Dr. Wilson or Ms. Perez or Rhonda, but I guess I want an assurance that when kids come into this, or young people come into this training program, that these are not going to be the kids that get loaded up with debt, that then don't get, get out there and working. I mean, there's way too much of that. So, and I think I talked with you about this before at some point, Dr. Wilson, or maybe it was Rhonda, and you guys assured me that we have systems in place to make sure that sort of abuse doesn't happen.
Mr. Hobson, members of the governing board, one of the criteria for us in the associate program is that it's only offered for in-demand workforce development areas. So part of the benefit of avoiding exactly what you're describing is that the careers that the associates are connected to are careers that individuals that our state is in dire need of, as well as having a compensation for the positions above what is the average income for the state. So in there is assurances that they're not going to be saddled with debt that they can't pay back. We also know that we're going to continue to look for ways to become much more efficient and effective in our price point. We do know, though, that we will never, or not never, until some things change, we will not be able to be at the price point of the community colleges, but we're going to be significantly less than the privates. And so I think in there is some assurances too, because oftentimes where you see individuals that come out of college with debt and not able to pay it back is either they go to a private institution that charges 4 times what a public institution would, or they come out with a degree that isn't a degree that is employable right away. And I think in both situations, we're going to be able to negate those in our programming.
Okay, thank you.
Hearing no more discussion, we'll call for the question.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, item C, funding approval for refreshments for governing board members and invited guests at completion ceremonies.
I move that we approve the funding approval for refreshments and governing board members and invited guests at completion ceremonies.
Second.
I have a question.
Yes.
What's the number?
We put 39.
It's not on any of our material.
See, funding approval refreshments. motion-
Counselor?
Doctor? The recommended motion is not to exceed the maximum allowable amount per person. That would be the state travel budget allowance.
Say that again, please.
What's in the recommended action is the not to exceed the maximum allowable amount per person, and that's defined in the state travel budget guidelines.
So they can have infinite as long as it was not in amount that was exceeding the per
As long as we
person.
know how many people we're servicing. So we don't have any of that. It just states the statute and no dollar amount or even an estimation of anybody. But we need to move forward because that's like week after next.
It's kind of.
Part of the problem is we don't have a list of who's going to be there, correct? I mean, that's.
It'll be budgeted on the amount of people that are invited.
Say that again,
That
please.
will determine, so when we invite 10 people, it'll be 10 times what the allowance is.
As a limit.
As a limit, correct.
Yeah.
So as long as we don't exceed the limit, we're within the guidelines that the Auditor General wants us to stick to.
Okay.
I thought this
I
was.
think going forward, we need to have some little more specificity of what we're voting on.
I thought this was just to allow us, since we didn't have a policy in place, that this was to create a policy to allow us to do so.
No, we've done this every year.
So I think what the Auditor General is asking for is that anytime there's dollars, and so there's always going to be the action item. There may be some policies that allow. Madam President, if it would be helpful, we have, sorry, Mr. President. If it would be helpful, we can table this, because there is there's a meeting before the completion that we would be able to have the specificity of who's being invited, get a sense from the board members who's going to be there, so that we can give you a number, if that would be more comfortable for you.
Dr. Wilson, it would be possible to amend the motion to put a cap on the number of attendees, and then that would be the maximum allowable amount.
But it works for me. Whatever you guys want to do.
I'm personally am comfortable moving forward, but I would like to see more specific information.
In the future.
Based on our council's interpretation of what we're voting, I don't think we're going to get in trouble. I think probably arrangements need to be made sooner than later.
Would you like me to amend my motion?
No,
Or table?
I'm fine. We have.
Approve.
To approve, yeah. I think I would be comfortable approving it today.
Okay.
I just was surprised there wasn't a little more information. But based on council's interpretation of the statute, I'm comfortable moving forward on this item.
Tammy, we had a second on that motion, haven't we?
Yes.
No, not yet?
Now you do.
No, I seconded it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Hobson seconded it. Got to take a roll call vote, just in case.
This motion, what are we voting?
To approve, my motion was to approve item 10C.
Okay, to approve, okay.
As written.
Just approve it.
Okay, Lane,
Aye.
Ellison,
Aye.
McAfee's an aye, Boyle,
Aye.
Ms. Boggs is not here, I'm sorry. Hobson,
Aye.
Covington,
Aye.
motion carries.
Okay. Item D, 10D, hiring salary guidelines for reclassification and title changes for administrative instructions, hourly exempt, et cetera, et cetera.
Mr. President, if I could.
Yes, sir.
In the 24-25 title changes, on the sheet that I gave you, the bottom third section, the very last position, Director, Student Career Services, Workforce Development Coordinator, and it should be 3, not 2. So if you choose to do a motion, if you could please include that change.
Okay. Didn't understand it. You can understand what
This one
Okay,
goes from a 2 to a 3.
okay. Workforce coordinator for that, or there, got it.
Yeah.
I have it inked in.
So do we have a motion?
We do not.
I'll move that we approve 10D as amended by Dr. Wilson.
I second.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, ask for the question.
Acclamation? or roll
Yes,
call?
acclamation, please.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, now we go to salary increase for administrative staff, item E. Here, motion?
Madam President, members of the governing board, if you
Yes, Dr.
recall,
Wilson.
one of
That's
the
right.
things we talked about is that I just presented to you all options. We can choose to do whatever you, as a reminder, the percent increase provided to non-10-month instructional staff was the 4%. And so we included the 4% as an option, but certainly the 3% is there just for your information and the cost associated with that. And if you would like us to do more than 4%, we could figure that out as well. But at least it gives you a sense of the 3 and the 4.
Okay. I have a motion.
So this is a motion for which item? D?
A or B?
E? Okay. I'll move that we grant the salary increases for administration and under option B.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, got a second? Any statements?
I would. I think we need to remember that we have, with growth comes unforeseen and foreseen costs down the road, such as parking structures that are going to be very expensive. And we need to keep that in mind. I personally love voting to give teachers and other people at schools more money, but I also like to really keep in mind the costs that are coming with our trajectory of growth. So just something, I would like to put that out there, something to really think about. I was not here to vote on teacher salaries when I was very sick. I would have brought that up back then. Just, I always want us as a board to be thinking short-term and long-term as well and have that vision. I just know that with our growth, there's going to come a lot of expense. So I would really like to ask probably Ms. Perez, either one of these are sustainable with the foreseeable costs, or have you not quite, I mean, I don't want to ask you something that put you on the spot, but are you comfortable with both of these?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good question, thank you. Any more discussion? If not, ask for the question.
Roll call or affirmation?
Acclamation.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, F, salary increases for adult education instructors. Dr. Wilson, I'm sorry I didn't include the other one because I know you're supposed to lead discussion and you got in there anyway, and I appreciate that.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, this is the same as item E. You provided a salary increase for non-instructional staff prior. That was the 4%. This is the support staff and adult ed instructors. That would be the remaining individuals outside of the central cabinet for a salary increase.
Okay, thank you. You hear a motion?
I move that we approve the 4%.
Okay,
I'll second the motion.
first and second. I'm sure we have the same question with Ms. Perez.
Same question for Ms. Perez.
Same question, we can afford this? No
Yes.
problems? Okay,
Say yes, Norm.
okay, make sure. Gotta make sure we can do everything. Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, ask for the question.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Motion carries, okay.
Here, correct?
Contract, okay, item G, contract renewals for administration, adult ed, and other support staff. Dr. Wilson.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, you have approved rearranging of positions. You have approved salary increases for positions. Previous meeting, you approved actual individuals to be employed. What this action item is the remaining outside of the central cabinet approval of individuals to be employed within the organization. And so you have adult ed instructors that are just purely adult ed. You have other support staff, and then you have administrators that would all need to be approved for reemployment so that we can issue them contracts based on the criteria that you've established earlier in the meeting.
Any other? Okay, need a motion?
I move to approve item 10G.
I'll second.
Got a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, ask for the question. Acclamation.
Before you.
Go ahead.
Isn't there an A and B option here? too?
No.
Oh, there's not, I'm sorry.
It's
Never mind.
just 1,000% FTE.
Okay, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. H, employment of Nathan Rush, termination for cause or accepted resignation. Do I have a motion?
Oh, I move What do you move? I move on the employment of Nathan Rush, termination for cause or accept resignation. Do I just repeat it? That's strange.
Would you like a little discussion with Dr. Wilson?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Mr. President, members of the governing board, action item H, there's two different possibilities there. One is the recommendation for termination for cause. The other is the acceptance of Mr. Rush's resignation letter.
Should I remove the motion I made even though it
Yeah,
was
let's just
seconded?
have it, yeah.
So I will just,
It wasn't seconded, so I would
well,
accept it.
delete what I said. Strike it from record, please. Thank you. Always wanted to say that. Strike it from record.
One of the things that is interesting for me, I think, as a superintendent, is navigating individuals and individuals as they separate from us as an organization. And I think there are some situations in which it's just not the right fit. It's not the right fit either defined by the individual or defined by the organization, but that doesn't mean that the individual may not find the right fit someplace else. And so, as a superintendent, I've accepted and forwarded resignations to you and supported those resignations because I believed it was the right thing to do for the individual and the right thing to do for the organization. It just wasn't the right fit. There have been situations that you've acted on in which there was recommendation for termination, no cause termination, and again, it just isn't the right fit, and it's time for everybody to move in their own separate directions. But there are times in which situations present themselves in which I believe it's important for the governing board to understand the why behind the recommendation for the termination for cause, or the governing board's willingness to accept the resignation as submitted by the employee. And I think it's important sometimes because I think as educators and as educational systems, there are times in which we have interactions with staff that aren't productive or healthy, and we let them resign and they go someplace else, and we run the risk of that unproductive or unhealthy behavior just reoccurring itself. It becomes a continual process. In my opinion, this is one of those situations. Mr. Rush is employed, or currently is employed with us as being the director was hired to be the director for our surgical tech program, for our sterile processing program, and for our LPN program. And very early on in his relationship to us, Mr. Rush ran into some difficult challenges that we tried to work him through so that he and others could have success within the organization. And unfortunately, as you'll hear tonight, that didn't necessarily occur. In fact, in many cases, a bad situation became compoundedly worse because individuals continued to make decisions that weren't in the best interest of the organization. The first incident that occurred happened in our surgical tech program, and I'd like Carlos, our surgical tech instructor, to come and share his interactions and time with Mr. Rush as we begin to paint the picture for why its recommendation for termination for cause.
Good evening. My name is Carlos Valto. I am the surgical technology instructor here at EVIT. I've been in my position since July 2023. I left my job at Chandler Regional Medical Center because I have a passion for surgical technology. I care about teaching. I was excited to work at a school where I could learn from experienced teachers and administrators. However, once Nathan Rush started his role as director, the environment quickly turned hostile. On Nathan's second day, he came into my classroom unexpectedly while students were present. We had spent the day planning the EVIT Expo, which was the next day, and we had different stations set up that we were going to showcase to show them our classroom. We had some time to kill, so we were taking a ungraded practice quiz. I let my students choose multiple ways to take the quiz: laptops, mobile devices, and or cell phones. It was just a practice quiz. Nathan introduced himself to the class and professionally scolded my adult students for using cell phones. The entire class was clearly uncomfortable and angry for being addressed like children by someone who they had just met. Prior to the incident, we were excited for the expo the next day. At the EVIT Expo, I only had one student show up, and myself. Once class was dismissed, Nathan came into my office to discuss the cell phone policy. During our discussion, it was apparent that Nathan's style of communication is authoritative and adversarial. The conversation quickly escalated, and Nathan telling me I was terminated. I was in the process of packing my belongings when Nathan came back to my office with Dr. Wilson and Dr. Doolin to discuss what had happened, and we made peace, shook hands, and we decided to move forward. Over the next few weeks, Nathan showed himself to be vindictive and manipulative. After the incident with Nathan, I agreed to stay in my position as full-time instructor. In an attempt to get me to lose my job, Nathan deceitfully reached out to HR and gave them false information that I was only going to be in my position temporarily, and he was going to interview my replacement. HR reached out to me and asked me if this was true. I told them absolutely not. I had no plans on leaving EVIT. And that is when my relationship with Mr. Rush ended.
So, I worked with Carlos and with Mr. Rush to try to resolve the initial incident, and I believe that individuals deserve opportunities to kind of grow into their role and responsibility. We're all human beings, and I think it's an ever-evolving process. And I said to Carlos that I appreciated him staying, and that this kind of thing isn't reflective of who we expect ourselves to be, and that I'm sorry. And then my conversations with Mr. Rush, I was clear to him in that how we go about our business as administrators matters as much as what our business is. That we can have the right idea, but if we go about it the wrong way, we're going to wind up with the wrong conclusion. Or if you don't have the best idea, but you go about it in a healthy way, you can fix it, because people are going to be more interested in how you treat them and how you interact with them in many ways, other than what you're wanting to get done. And so I said to Nathan that it's really important as you grow into this that you understand this idea of making sure that you don't make a situation worse by the way you engaged in the situation. I said, but in an effort to try to make sure that I'm being supportive of Carlos and of Nathan, I asked that the Dr. Schreiner become the direct report for surgical technologies, which meant that now Carlos would report directly to Dr. Schreiner, and Nathan wouldn't be part of that dynamic in an effort to try to support Carlos, support surgical technologies, but also to give Nathan a bit of a gap or a bit of a space given the situation that just occurred. It wasn't too much longer after that occurred that Dr. Schreiner began interacting with Nathan in a way that was not conducive to what is in the best interest of the organization. Dr. Schreiner?
As you just heard, Nathan failed at his attempt to establish healthy relationships with the staff when he came on board. I reviewed the incident with him, and I asked him what his accountability was. He said none. He had done nothing wrong. I let him know that I would be overseeing the Surg Tech program, and I did not want him to have any further discussion with any of the employees or anything to do with the program. I would be taking care of that. That's when he went to HR and instructed them to post his position because he was temporary. I received several complaints that from staff and faculty that he was trying to make some changes in the middle of the semester. He had just started in the program, and I said to him, let's wait. Let's look at for the rest of the semester. I want you to take notes. I want you to pay attention to the things you think you want to change, and we'll discuss them and we'll look at making the changes for next semester. He told me that he was in control of the program and he would be making changes as he saw fit. I informed him he would not be making any changes without my approval. He was very frustrated with this answer and again said he is supposed to be in control of the program. I did ask him to cover one course, a 1-credit course for the balance of the semester. So it would be 7 weeks of teaching 2 hours on a Monday. After I spoke with him, he immediately called another faculty member and told her she was to teach this course. I contacted Nathan and let him know that she had other projects assigned to her. I needed for him to teach that, and he instructed me that that was not in the program's best interest, as he was the director and he needed the time to direct the program. He failed to follow my directive numerous times. He refused any further meetings with me. He would only meet with Dr. Wilson. He removed them from his calendar and canceled those that he had accepted.
So, Mr. President, members of the governing board, one of the things one of the things that's problematic in the organization is when you have individuals that are given opportunities and given clear direction and they choose not to follow it. The insubordination that occurs begins to create an environment that's not healthy for the whole of the organization. As you can hear Dr. Schreiner, when I moved the surgical tech to be the direct report to Dr. Schreiner, and Dr. Schreiner tells Mr. Rush that he's no longer a part of the surgical tech program, and then Mr. Rush takes it upon himself to go to HR and have a conversation with HR about Carlos's future employment. It certainly isn't heeding what I had said to make sure that the way you're interacting with individuals doesn't make the situation worse. Certainly isn't heeding the directive that Dr. Schreiner gave him to not get involved in the surgical tech program. Both are reasonable expectations and reasonable directives that Mr. Rush chose to not follow. Compounding the issue was exactly what Dr. Schreiner explained, is that she had said to him, the way you're working with individuals, don't go so fast, let's get our feet underneath us, don't go, and that was just the opposite. In fact, Mr. Rush would engage with other colleagues in a way that was not professional, and when they asked him to please not, he continued, to the point that made some decisions and some choices that were counterproductive to the organization. One in particular was his interaction with Natalie, who was his colleague and coworker, and was clear that he wasn't to engage, yet he chose to.
Mr. President, members of the board. My name is Natalie Sikowski. I've been teaching in the practical nursing program here since 2021. Over the past few months, Nathan has initiated several conversations with me regarding personnel issues and complaints about other colleagues. These discussions were beyond my scope and responsibilities and station within the organization. I spoke with Dr. Schreiner about my concerns with Nathan and his slanderous conversations about these colleagues. And she informed me that she had discussed with him to cease such behavior. However, it persisted. Nathan continued to share these sensitive topics with me. He even called me at home on the weekend at one point to discuss his frustrations with this specific colleague. When I did not engage in the conversation, he abruptly and very rudely hung up the phone on me, which left me feeling uncomfortable. An additional issue that I had, or incident I should say, I was away at a conference and Nathan took it upon himself to go into my grade book and change my grades without asking me. He removed an assessment that he deemed unfit, and the action resulted in a lot of confusion, some very upset students. It actually even created a failing grade for many students. When I confronted him about this or asked him what had happened, he essentially told me, or kind of displayed a dismissive attitude asserting his authority over the program, that he was the director. I asked him not to do this anymore. Leadership asked him and told him he could not change grades without speaking to the instructor first, but he persisted in doing that. He actually went back in and changed it again, and just blatantly disregarded the direction of his faculty member and also his leadership. Thank you.
So, Mr. President, members of the governing board, we begin to have a pattern here in which we have an individual that is being given opportunity and continues to either not adhere to or follow the expectation that's being established, even though it's very clear what the expectation is. Nathan made an opportunity to come meet with me and share his concerns that he had, and some of the concerns he had revolved around his relationship to Dr. Schreiner, some allegations that existed regarding the Board of Nursing, some concerns he had as far as the financial stewardship of the organization. And I listened to Nathan and understood that there was some concerns he had. And in my mind, part of what I wanted to do is to make sure that if these allegations are true, that we correct them. If they're not true, that we understand that they're not true. And so I asked that, and Nathan had a concern that according to the Board of Nursing, he shouldn't be reporting to Dr. Schreiner, which I don't believe to be the case. But in an effort to try to unpack some of the concerns that were raised, I made the decision to have Nathan report directly to Dr. Doolin. And the reason for that was twofold. One, Dr. Doolin understands the issues that Nathan was raising, as well as if anybody in the organization. And it was important to me that as we talked about our LPN program, as we talked about our RN program, as we talked about our finances, that we understood as an institution where we were and what needed to be done to make sure that we weren't going to not be in a position that we don't want to be in. And also, I asked our legal team to work with me on some of the additional allegations that were outside the scope of the work that Dr. Doolin needed to do. When I explained that to Mr. Rush that he'd be reporting directly to Dr. Doolin and that he needed to work with her to unpack some of these issues, he seemed relatively pleased with that he said he had a good relationship with Dr. Doolin and that should work well. I had the conversation with Dr. Doolin about the expectation, and as you'll see, that very short time did not go well either.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. In regards to my time working with Nathan, it was very, very brief. Approximately, I want to say about 5 to 6 days total that he reported to me before he then resigned, submitted his letter of resignation. During that time, one of the things that Dr. Wilson had tasked me with is there were some allegations that had been made, and he wanted to make sure that it was not my job to investigate the allegations that were made about the past, but to make sure that nothing was going on in the future. We were in the process of needing to get out the student schedule, and that coincided with the workload to make sure that our staff and faculty in the LPN program were fully loaded and doing the job in which they were hired. So I was asked to make sure I went over all of those pieces within the program. That was the first task I had for Nathan and myself. I did discover upon reviewing where the program had been in the past that what we had originally designed or asked to happen hadn't happened exactly the way we had deemed, which meant I wanted to train Nathan to do it exactly the way that EVIT would like this process to be followed. This isn't a right or wrong or a Board of Nursing rule. They don't tell us how to staff. They just tell us we have to staff appropriately to meet the needs of the student. And so we wanted to make sure that our staffing went with EVIT's policy. So I took a good look at what was in there in the staffing and the student schedule and the way it was designed, and noticed that it wasn't done the way that I had originally asked it to be done. So we set forth in completing that. He had already designed a schedule, but in looking at the schedule, he had brought in additional adjuncts to cover courses that could have been covered by our in-house faculty had the workload and the schedule been done appropriately. So we began the fun task, and it's a heavy task of going through to make sure we did the workload first, to make sure that all our full-time faculty were fully loaded, and to make sure we had the personnel ready to take on that challenge. We then began designing the schedule. I will tell you, I was fitting Nathan in my other duties because normally he did not report to me, and I was asked to do this by Dr. Wilson. So given the allegations and what I was working with Nathan, I had him just come in on a Thursday in between my other meetings. That meant that he probably had to drop some of his other obligations, as well as I removed what I could from my schedule and we began working on the workload. I would say that Thursday, the day went well. He was receptive, he was learning, he was willing to participate and answering some of my questions as we designed a more fluid schedule that optimized our resources and didn't put strain on the institution. So at the end of that day, we left and we agreed that we would meet the next morning, Friday morning, I told him I would not probably be in till around 8:30. And he said that would work for him, and I told him I would call him as soon as I got in and was able. I arrived at 8:30 and was not able to meet with him right at 8:30. There was another pressing issue that I had to solve first. Called him around 9 o'clock to come over and begin working on the calendar because I wanted to get it completed that day, the workload and calendar out to the faculty to review the following week and then out to the students as soon as possible so they could make plans for their next couple months. He agreed to come over, he came over, and when he came to my office, he informed me he had a family emergency and that he needed to, I assured him that that was fine, that families should always come first, and just to make sure he put his time in, go ahead and put in for the leave, and that if I had any questions, I would call him. I did let him know that I was going to continue to work on the workload and the calendar to make sure it was done so we could release it to the students. Again, we have staff and students waiting for this to be completed so that they can make arrangements in their lives. These are adult students who have childcare issues, work issues that need to be worked around. So time was of the essence. I continued to work that night till about 7 p.m. Came in on Saturday and worked most of the day Saturday to complete the schedule. I then sent an email to Mr. Rush asking him when the best time was that I could meet with the faculty in the LPN program, when they would all be present so that I could show them the schedule and we could all go over it to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Because 2 eyes are better, 3 eyes are better, 4 eyes are even better than that. So we wanted to go over it before we released it to the students. The response I got back from Mr. Rush in an email was shocking to me. I was not expecting the response I got back. He was very upset that I was doing the schedule. He felt like I was taking the control away from him, that he had already designed a schedule and that I wasn't taking what he designed into account. There was lots of accusations about finances and about the program being in the position that it was in, to which I wrote an email, a response email. Prior to sending my response email, it's important to note that I sent it to Dr. Wilson for approval first. As my direct supervisor, I wanted to make sure he was aware of the communication I received and what my response was, given the nature of allegations of the past and things that had occurred. I wanted everybody to be on the same page. Dr. Wilson approved, said, yes, it's perfect, go ahead and send it. So I sent it. I then received another email from Nathan that shortly after there, which was accusatory for a lot of accusations towards me, towards Dr. Schreiner, towards Dr. Wilson. And at that point, I let Dr. Wilson know that Nathan is new in his position as being over a nursing program. He had potential to learn, but you have to be willing to learn by those who came before you. Dr. Schreiner had 20 plus years in nursing education and actually trained me. So I know what her background is. And I did not, at that point I let Dr. Wilson know Nathan did not want to learn from me. And that there's nothing I can teach him because he's not willing to learn, and that I was no longer comfortable working with Nathan.
So, Mr. President, members of the governing board, we have, I think, a repeated pattern in which you have an individual that is given opportunities, given directive, given clear directives on how he should proceed forward in doing his business, and each time the directive isn't followed. The insubordination demonstrated is unhealthy to the organization and unhealthy to the work environment. I had already had a pre-scheduled meeting on the books for Nathan on Monday morning, and after the events of of the weekend, I was going to explain to him that based on our time together, based on the interactions with Carlos, the directives I've given, the interactions with Dr. Schreiner, the interactions with Natalie, the interactions with Dr. Doolin, the time and time again, there was opportunities presented that I would be recommending to Nathan, I'd be recommending a termination with cause. That was the conclusion I reached over the weekend, and like I said, I had a previously scheduled meeting for Nathan on Monday. Monday morning, I received an email from Nathan indicating that he's going to resign the position, is giving us 2 weeks' notice, and that he was going to leave the organization effective 2 weeks from that date. You have the opportunity to accept his resignation. That's why I forwarded it to you. I think he has a right, as you do, to make the determination whether it's in the best interest of the organization to accept the resignation. But I went to Mr. Rush's office and explained to him that I would forward the recommendation for resignation, but I would also be putting on the agenda a recommendation for termination for cause, for insubordination. Mr. Rush indicated to me that did I think it was appropriate the way that individuals were talking to him. And I said, absolutely, because in every single situation, I think there was opportunities that it was Mr. Rush's doing that made the situation more difficult than it needed to be. So it is my recommendation that Mr. Rush be terminated for cause for insubordination, although you do have the ability to accept his resignation as presented to you by himself and by me.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Hobson.
So if we terminate him for cause, he has the right to due process hearing. Isn't that correct, Counsel? Mr. Kilble?
No, it's not. That is not correct, Mr. Hobson. He's an adult ed instructor and an at-will employee. He's not a continuing certificated high school teacher.
Oh, so does his salary continue during the period that he's is he entitled to due process?
No, not as an at-will employee, but under district policy, his due process rights were he could send a written response to the allegations to the board, which he declined to do.
Okay. And when is the effective date of the termination then?
It would be when the board votes to terminate him, because only the board has the power to hire and fire.
Okay. If we not a great fan of terminating for cause because it fixes it so makes his efforts to support himself going forward more difficult. I have no problem with if any reference check comes our way reporting that he's ineligible for rehire and that he's not that his time here was not distinguished. But it just seems to me to be an unnecessary injury, particularly because we have his resignation in hand. So, but I'll understand how if people choose to accept Dr. Wilson's recommendation, I'll understand that absolutely too. It doesn't sound like a great employee.
Okay. Dr. Wilson, can you go over again what exactly with cause would include? What would that?
So the cause would be for insubordination, and the
How does that affect him in further jobs or?
Oh, so, yeah, so, for cause means that there was a reason the organization believed that he's not the kind of employee that we would want, and they may interpret as an entity that would be an employee that they may not want. That's one possibility. Termination without cause this wasn't the right fit. Resignation is the individual being able to say, I don't like working at that place. I mean, the flip side to it is that an individual that resigns has the ability to go and say, look, I was an exceptional employee and it was the institutional's issue, not mine, and that's why I got the heck out of there. So I think that there is some concern as to Mr. Hobson, and that's why I very rarely take the position that of doing for cause, but I think as educators, there's some times in which we don't do that, and the individual winds up going to another institution and repeating, and if the institution knew, they potentially would not have made some of the decision they made, which could have prevented heartache for them.
Thank you. Is he still on campus? Is he?
So I assigned him to work from home, and so he's not on our campus, but he's still being paid, because as Counselor indicated, I don't have the authority to hire or to terminate, so he was being paid until the board either accepts his resignation or agrees to terminate him for cause.
Okay.
Mr. President, are we ready for motions?
Yes, if you'd like to make a motion, that'd be great.
Yeah. I would like to move for termination with cause, and this is something that I don't take lightly, but I do appreciate the testimony of our valued employees, some of whom I've known for a long time, and I do not have any reason to question their veracity of the complaint. So my motion is to terminate with cause effective today.
I'll second that, and I'd like to also mention that we've had other chances with other employees that we've talked about firing with or without cause, and I think we've erred on contextually for those individual things with the nuances of what took place in those people. I think this was egregious and obvious, and this institution and these people tried all that they could over and over. I do believe that there are people that need to have the label of being fired for cause so that other institutions can avoid some of the mess or the potential problems that come from this. And I understand, Mr. Hobson, your objection, but I think this is a case where it is warranted. And with that was my second, with a little something to say.
Second with a bonus?
Yes.
Any other bonuses?
So in point of fact, when he leaves here, he can choose to report or not that he was an employee of EVIT. He doesn't have to carry a plaque along or a scarlet letter that says I was terminated for cause from EVIT. In any case, the check will be if there's a reference check. And the reference check can be just as easily done by the HR department saying, you know, Mr. Rush is not eligible for rehire. That's the classic question that HR people pass back and forth between themselves. They all know what that means. Not eligible for rehire. And you know, you know, further inquiry was not a successful. We can say all those things, but to the extent that EVIT takes a position that this is a bad employee, I'm not so sure that there isn't the possibility that there may be, particularly, I mean, one of the things that this gentleman did, you understand, was he reported things, and admittedly, you know, I'm not suggesting they had any merit, but he was reporting things that he thought was wrong with what was going on with us and with the Board of Nursing and whomever. You know, and to the extent that we now terminate him, there is a potential for, you know, him coming back after us on retaliation claims, perhaps insisting on due process hearings. You know, there's just a mess that we can stir up. Now, the probability is that he'll go away. But the easy move and the move that I think keeps us, you know, at least at risk for having this thing blow up in our face is to just accept his resignation, and the HR department can report if and when there's a reference check that he's not eligible for rehire. I don't know why we insist on going forward with this. And in no way do I mean to be suggesting that the comments by the folks who I heard comment about this have anything other than utmost merit. I mean, I accept everything they say, but the easy solution for us is he's offered to resign and be out the door. That's the easy one that avoids the potential for anything blown up in our face. So Just so you know, in no way do I mean to suggest that any of my colleagues are incorrect about their judgments either. So, you know, with respect to the folks who've commented and the rest of you, I'm not suggesting that at all. I think it's the easier, surest solution is to simply to accept his resignation.
Well, Dr. Wilson, Mr. Cobell, do you foresee that happening?
So I think there's always the possibility of something happening, whether it's foreseeable or not, to be honest with you. And
let me ask you this. Despite that, do you still go forward with the recommendation?
So I think the point that Mr. Hobson is making has merit. Part of my job as the superintendent is to present to the governing board the information that I think is important for them to be privy to. Oftentimes, when you have a termination without cause, all you get to hear is, we parted ways, moved in a different direction. And that does not necessarily tell the whole of the story. I think having the opportunity to tell the whole of the story matters. I think that I have a duty to the staff I work with and for to have their story told, and sometimes the acceptance of a resignation or the termination without cause doesn't do justice to that. I think regardless of the decision that gets made, the governing board reversing my recommendation and accepting the resignation, my goal has been met, that you all can hear the narrative and that our faculty and staff recognize that there are times in which what occurred should not have occurred, and that we will defend them. If that is my goal, then it was accomplished. If the idea of switching to the resignation lessens the liability, then I can live with that. And so I'm not intentionally trying to not answer your question. I don't foresee it, but if you all accept the resignation, I don't know that I feel any different in that I accomplished the two things I wanted to accomplish. For you all to hear the why behind the recommendation, and for staff to know the why behind the institution standing up for them when they've been wronged. Regardless of the decision you make, those two have been accomplished. And so the resignation, to Mr. Hobson's point, accomplishes the same end. The only thing it doesn't do, and to Mr. Hobson's point, that can be managed through HR, is it doesn't send the narrative to future employers. I think in this particular situation, the time that Mr. Rush was with us is so small that he may potentially not even put EVIT as a place of employment that he was at. Sometimes individuals are with us for 8 years, 10 years. Well, that is a big difference because you got to explain that gap of employment. This really isn't that situation there. So potentially he could say he didn't work at EVIT, and whether you do the resignation or you do the terminate, it doesn't change it. So to your point, to your question, I don't foresee it. It's possible, but honestly, if you accept the resignation, I wouldn't disagree with it because I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish.
I appreciate that. I think my main focus is that I don't want us to be hampered by the fear of legal issues, and so that we act in a different way. And my biggest issue is always to protect the teachers and the staff. They are under fire all the time, and to have it come from within is, I think, a double gut punch. And as a good faith show to the staff and et cetera who underwent it but are also watching, I would like to do this to say that, yes, as a board member, I support you. And so that's why I seconded the motion, and I still believe that we should fire with cause.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Hobbs.
I would hope that going forward, we ask ourselves, Dr. Wilson, I mean this as both as the administration and the board, that we ask ourselves how we got this bad egg in and why we didn't get rid of him sooner. I mean, that's the other part, I guess. Sounds like he's been pretty destructive. And I share Ms. McPhee's view that I think teachers should feel supported. Students always, of course, should feel supported, and anything that interferes with that needs to be, moved out. I still think that, I accept what my colleagues have said as well. So there's no wrong vote in this matter, I think.
Any more bonuses?
Just a quick bonus,
There we go.
one more. I think, I agree with what has been said, and one of the reasons why is because, Dr. Wilson, you are our employee as a board, and then everybody else through some sort of lattice reports back up, right? And so I trust you to make the decisions, especially around personnel and your team, that are in the best interest of the institution, and most importantly, in the best interest of kids. So I'll be supportive of this when it comes up.
I agree with that statement, that we need to support our administration and teachers.
Call the question.
Call the question.
The question is called.
Is this individual roll call?
Yes.
Lane? Oh, actually, the motion, did I need to amend the motion?
You need to make the motion. I think we just had this.
Motion
I
was
made
made.
the motion.
She
I apologize.
seconded it by Mr.
I'm sorry.
Lee.
I apologize.
I'm sorry, that was my fault. That was
You
a brain
seconded
fart.
it.
I know, and then I was like, what did I second? So, sorry. Strike that too. Just kidding.
Good.
Okay, Lane,
Aye.
Ellison,
Aye.
McAfee is an aye, Boyle,
Aye.
Hobson,
Aye.
Covington,
Aye.
motion carries.
Whoa. All right, we're done with that one. Now we're down to superintendent's report.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, just a lot of fun events and activities occurring over the next couple of weeks. As some of you are signed up for the screening of the video, that's wonderful. I believe Mr. Ellenson, I believe Mr. Boyle, and some others. And so that's a wonderful opportunity. The 10th is our fashion show. If you've not been to that, I would encourage you, if you have the ability, to attend. Our students work really hard all year long building up to that, and it's really a wonderful, wonderful presentation of work that's done. Certainly our completion ceremonies are coming, just around the corner. It's interesting. I think that, Mr. Lane kind of alluded to this when you talked about the Region 5. CTE is a really interesting space to be in right now, and I think the idea of having the opportunity to celebrate that on any level just makes sense. And so I encourage you, if there is time in your schedule, to please reach out to Tammy and see if you can't get slotted into as many of those opportunities, just because it really is a neat time of the year to celebrate our students and our organization.
That's it? All right. Add to the calendar. Here we go. May 13th, lucky day. We get to come back on. It's a Monday, though, for our next meeting. Any other calendar information needed?
We are still trending towards having a deeper dive discussion on the Auditor General's first report. I know that was a request that was made, and for a number of different reasons, we haven't been able to do that, but that's still on our radar to do.
Okay. Any other information? Hearing none, we'll go for adjournment. Acclamation, please.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned.